Hey there, friends of CroWares. My name is Lance. Many of you know me as BKG, Best Kind Gaming, BK, and I'm one of the core members of the CroWares team. More importantly to this video, I am the mind and voice behind Emmerin Fall, the chaotic demon hunter rogue in our D&D Gens campaign through Verendrel and Reign of the Sundered Idol, our 5e compatible module. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit of the inspiration on how I created Emmerin and how I play my D&D characters in general, as well as offering a little of my advice over my 10 years of playing Dungeons & Dragons, and give you a little bit of insight on how I built him mechanically and how he fits into the entire world of Verendrel. Throughout this video, I'm going to be discussing how I created Emmerin, the Blood Hunter rogue, and what I would really love is if down in the comments below, you spend some time telling me a little bit about how you create your characters, what you think works really well for you and your group, or even how you would have built Emmerin. So let me know. So Emmerin is a native of Verendrel, which is in contrast to what the other characters in this campaign are, like Laya and Orlo, whose backgrounds you'll also hear in this series, are not from Verendrel originally, so this gives Emmerin a little bit of some information that he can pass along from time to time, or some help that he can be. Originally, I had wanted Emmerin to be kind of like Geralt of Rivia, these fuck moments kind of thing. I wanted him to be broody and dark, and I wanted him to carry that darkness within him that the demon was giving him. And I wanted him to be the Order of the Mutant originally. So this is in the Blood Hunter subclass. The Order of the Mutant is kind of like your Witcher, where they're taking potions and mutagens to increase their strength, make them more powerful than they should ostensibly be. But I was watching Travis Willingham play Chetney in Campaign 3 of Critical Role, and I thought, oh my god, that looks fun. But the problem is I've never been a fan of werewolves. In any of these, like vampire versus werewolves, I'm always on Team Vampire. I don't like werewolves that much. So I kind of made my own little touch with Emmerin, where he doesn't transform into a werewolf. He transforms into a demon. And this form, it's kind of like, the way I look at it is like a corrupted Zora from the Legend of Zelda series, with this long hair, these scales, these long sharp teeth, that really gives him an edge in battle. And so, as I said earlier, I wanted him to be this broody character, but if I could give any amount of advice to anybody making a character, it is to have a framework in mind. So I had this idea of him being this dark, broody thing. He had this dark secret within him, but when I sat down at the table, that wasn't going to play with how Orlo and Laya, and at the time Flo, were playing their characters. There was a little bit of levity, there was some funny moments. So I decided to allow Emmerin to grow in that regard. I let him find himself, almost. As we played through the sessions, I stayed quiet a little bit in the beginning, and then as the sessions grew and I found Emmerin's place, I found that Emmerin had begun to take on kind of a personality trait of mine, which is to be a little bit of a shithead, a little bit of a troll, and a little bit of a troublemaker. And I think that this has fallen really well into the dynamic. So in terms of creating the mechanics of a character, there are a lot of people out there who like to min-max, who like to try to make the most efficient character in the world. And truthfully, Emmerin is not that. The truth is he is set up to be a ranged character, but the demon form doesn't really jive with that. And it's just something I've been kind of playing back and forth with as to whether or not this is a way I want to play it, or if I want to try to min-max it. But truthfully, if I'm to give advice to anybody going in to set up a character, mechanically, it's to pick a simple goal. I wanted to roll a ton of dice, so I try to build Emmerin as best I can to roll a ton of dice whenever I can. Whether you want to be able to cast one huge spell and just level a battlefield, whether you want to have somebody with a huge two-handed axe who just deals a ton of damage in one smack, kind of like Emmerin, just have that goal in mind and then work with your DM to build your character around that and get them to help you figure out what it is you need. Truthfully, I don't know. We began playing and I showed up the session and I said, he's a dark-skinned guy with a Scottish accent. And that's just kind of how it went down. It took me a minute to find the voice for Emmerin. You can hear that in the very early episodes. And honestly, in some sessions, it takes me a minute to find his voice at the end of the day because I'm not Scottish. And I'm sure there are people in Scotland who hear my rendition of it and go, well, that's a terrible accent. You should never do that. And please don't ever do that again. But the beautiful thing about Dungeons and Dragons, I think, is that when you're looking for a voice for a character, if you find it and it's not quite what you're envisioning, it's not quite right, it doesn't sound like perfect French accent, what have you, it doesn't matter because we're in a fantasy world. So whatever accent you or whatever voice you come up with for the character is correct. Truthfully, I don't do anything specific to get into character for Emmerin. Like I said earlier, I think once you've played a character for long enough, they do begin to kind of take on the personal traits that you have as an individual. And I think Marisha Ray did a really good job of talking about this in an interview where she was talking about her relationship with her monk in season 2 of Critical Role called Bo. And I think the same thing with Emmerin, where Emmerin has taken on these kind of personality traits that I have as well, which is, you know, if you've ever played a game with me, my buddies are going to be the first to tell you that I can be a bit of a troll. I'm the first one to run off in a random direction and Leroy Jenkins my way into a situation and ultimately die. So there is that little bit of a shithead or a troublemaker in me that I allow to come out through Emmerin. And the darker elements of Emmerin is in seeking a family. He had his family ripped apart and he is seeking that now. And you know, I've never had my family ripped apart, but I always do seek family. I always seek relationships. And spending time with people who I've chosen to spend my time with means a lot to me. So you can see this through the relationship with Orlo and with Laya in particular, where you can see Emmerin kind of grasping at these connections where maybe he's, you know, Laya's the little sister that he never had the opportunity, or Orlo is the big brother he never wanted. Because let's face it, Orlo is chaos incarnate, which you think he'd respect. Yeah, and he does. Honestly, my favorite moment for Emmerin in the Razi campaign was right at the beginning. Right in when they met, they came down the stairs, they saw this mysterious guy stood there rifling through things. And the question for a question period, I think, is what was my favorite. And I knew I was going to jive very well with the table when that happened, because I think Zamzara, as my co-player in this situation, really picked up on what I was trying to do and played very heavily into how Orlo would do that. Orlo, not being the smartest, most socially bright creature in the world, had no idea what was going on. So he started asking questions. And every time he'd say like, well, how do you know we can trust you? Emmerin would be like, you don't. Okay, now it's my turn for a question. And I thought that was just so fun. The dynamic was fantastic. I love that Emmerin and even Laya picked up on it and made it really fun. And my wife just walked in and ruined my shot. And folks, if you're enjoying the content that you're seeing here from CroWare, really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, subscribe, and come join our Discord community. Talk to us a lot about Dungeons & Dragons or the other games that you're playing. We have an active community and we'd love you to be a part of it.